they just completely replicated this very card. They didn't have to change a thing, and it still made sense with the element of air. That's the kind of thing that I want to talk about. That's the kind of mindfuck that I want to talk about today. Hello everybody, welcome back. It is warm in here, but I am not complaining because I'm finally having the few weeks of summer that I'm longing for all year round, all year long in Holland, and it's finally hot, you know, warm enough to wear this kind of stuff and be comfortable. At least I am comfortable, because I kind of feel I live in a country where it's winter 3/4 of the year, so this little opening that we have somewhere in July, August, this time in August, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it very much. And I want to talk to you about the different elements with different suits. I don't really know how to say that. There are many different ways to actually explain it, but I'll get to that. Long story short, before I actually get to the long story, is that we all know this. Usually, I have my Waite Centennial here. Cups goes with water, Pentacles goes with earth, Wands goes with fire, and then Swords goes with air. That is what most decks out there these days use as a system. Now, first disclaimer, which may actually be new information to a big chunk of us. Not every tarot practitioner even considers the 4 elements when interpreting the suits, okay? Because the swords, suit of swords, just means the head, the mind, thought. Then we have the cups, just means the heart, the emotion, the feelings, love. And then we have coins, which means the body, the material world. And then when we look at the wands, this is just sexuality, passion. So you see right there, to me, when learning tarot, and still to this day, this will never change, I think, the elements really help me to, you know, understand, fully understand and feel and experience what the suits in the tarot mean. So the elements to me are very helpful, but not every tarot practitioner or tarot reader uses the elements in that way. Actually, it's the suits themselves, you know. The elements are just kind of a way to understand the suits in a way, because this doesn't say fire, it says wands, right? You know what I mean? You could almost say, well, we're done. It's as simple as that. Except that we're not. And it's not. Because sometimes, in some decks, with some systems, it's all different, and different in a very surprising way. I have a lot of information and also thoughts about that. We've probably all heard or own a deck that puts swords with fire and then wands with air, so those 2 suits are switched. I am going to talk about a few decks that I don't own. But Kasia from Tarot Map, I reached out to her because she made a video years ago in 2017, I believe. It is all linked below. I reached out to her because she made a video about one of the decks that I want to talk about in particular. She owns that deck. She's very lucky, and I asked her if she would let me use some pictures of that deck from her video, and she very kindly said yes. So that is very helpful for this video, and also very helpful for you, because you know, I'll be able to show some pictures of the deck, some pictures of the cards that I'm talking about, but then also linking the video, because Kasia's video is the full walkthrough. So if you want to see the entirety of that very cute and pretty deck, then you can go ahead and watch that after this one. That is very helpful, but as I said, I am going to talk about a few decks that I don't actually own. So if I do get something wrong, or it's incomplete, or something is off about it, then please feel free to let me know in the comments, because, you know, share the information you have and your own personal thoughts. Okay, so a deck like Modern Spellcasters Tarot, for example, is one of those decks that puts fire with swords and air with wands, right? Now, I see that as not so crazy strange. I mean, I'd rather not, at this point at least, have to work with a deck that switches those elements, but even that, it's not so much of a stretch, you know what I mean? Because after all, these are the two active suits of the tarot, and it is, you know, this could be seen as daggers or athames or athames, however you pronounce that, and you know, in the craft then, using this tool does carry the element of fire. And then wands is something you move around in the air, and therefore that would be air. So not that far-fetched in my mind. Now, I've noticed that in that specific deck, it's not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, I believe, but there are so many cards that, you know, look a lot like the Rider-Waite-Smith. This one was really funny to me because the Eight of Wands is the exact same picture, the exact same imagery in the Rider-Waite-Smith that puts fire with wands, and you know, everything as I'm at least used to. It's exactly the same image basically, but they of course in the modern spellcaster tarot put air with wands, and that makes perfect sense as well when you look at this picture. It's just these 8 wands are actually pretty much flying through the air, so an actual Rider-Waite-Smith depiction, and that fits. I just thought that was funny, the way that it fits so well. Nothing was changed actually, you know, except for it was redrawn in a different style, but yeah. And there's more of that in my little research about this. So yeah, let's look at it. So as I said, these two, they are the receptive elements, and these two the active elements, and I kind of feel like, well, if there would be a switch in the elemental attribution, then it would make sense that it would happen here. Both active elements, and I guess I kind of see this as a wand as kind of a torch thing, so that does very much correspond to fire, but there's also something to say for, you know, well, both of those theories. But then when you look at this, cups are obviously water, and then what we're left with is earth, and that would be pentacles. Or so one would think, because there are actually decks out there that dared to jumble up this understanding that we have, that took us years to learn. I'm talking about the Picard system. Now, I am half French and I speak French, but I still don't know how to say that first name. It's Eudes Picard? I have no idea. But his last name is Picard. An astrologer, I believe, who made this different system with the tarot suits. I'm really only naming him because this is where this very strange, at first sight at least, system and attribution, association, all of that, correspondence, all of those words came from. What he did is that he put air with cups and water with swords. And then he kept fire with wands, and pentacles with earth, or coins, or desks, or pens, and that is so interesting to me, because first of all, what? You're telling me that cups are not water? Anyway, I don't know much about the Picard system at all, but I did do a little bit of research to find some decks who have these particular attributions to the suits. So first of all, of course, the actual Picard tarot deck. It's out there, it's beautiful. The pips in particular, because they do transform to pips. They don't look like this, they look really pippish. But there's a lot going on in the background usually. There's a lot of symbolism still, kind of reminiscent of the way that Thoth uses the pips, because it's not just very dry, what's the word, abstract Marseille. There's actually a background to it, and you know, all of that. So I really love the way that it's all set up. There's just a lot of things going on, and I'm going to link either the images or someone's video showing this deck and explaining a little bit about it, because it really is a gorgeous deck. But I don't really know if it's for me at this point in time because of that swords are water kind of thing and cups are air, so I'm not sure about that personally, but at this point that system does stop me from actually putting it on my wish list, but that doesn't take away the fact that it looks beautiful. Same with this deck, El Gran Tarot Esoterico. I mean, I know I didn't even try with that pronunciation, but it's just better this way. I love the way it looks, but I'll probably not get it in the end. Then there's the Balbi Tarot. I almost got a vintage version of that deck a few times, but still something stopped me from actually getting it, and now I really don't miss it, but it looks really good with a lot of vibrant colors, also something probably linked below. And then the Thompson-Leng tarot deck. That is very rare, out of print, but very cute, extremely cute. And I know that there are more. Feel free to share and add to this list. Enlighten me. But yeah, those decks are examples of decks that have the following attributes. As I said, just to get back into it, this would be fire, this would be air, this is still earth, and this is now water. Even though, as I said, I particularly love those pips of El Gran Tarot Esoterico and then the actual Picard tarot deck that's out there, the Thompson-Lang tarot deck is the one that I actually want to talk about, because that one is a little bit of a puzzle. It looks so much straight up, at first glance at least, like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. That it does have some changes, but really not much of the imagery has been changed from what Pamela Coleman-Smith drew for the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Yet, they did manage to surprise me, and I think it will also surprise you in case you've never seen that deck before. The Thomson-Leng tarot deck is definitely cute, has its very own art style and colors, and it's really cool that it's so extremely rare, but at the time when it was published somewhere in 39, I believe, those little cards, bridge-sized, were just a gift with a woman's magazine or something like that. So the whole idea of that deck is just interesting on its own, and also just the fact that it was very well researched, I think. Because, as I said, the deck looks so much like Rider-Waite-Smith, but the attributions are switched. And then how does that work? Because it's kind of like the same thing as the modern spellcasters tarot, where they just completely replicated this very card. They didn't have to change a thing, and it still made sense with the element of air. That's the kind of thing that I want to talk about. That's the kind of mindfuck that I want to talk about today. That is why it's so interesting to me. I've briefly addressed this cups are air thing in my latest live chat, which was a lot of fun. Thanks again for that. My live chat on YouTube, and I actually just simply thought that it was interesting enough to make an entire video about, so here you go. And I also want to just hear what you think, because I'm just going to do this and see if I can manage to put some screenshots of the Thompson-Lang deck right next to it, because honestly, those two decks look so much alike, the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Thompson-Lang, that I feel that someone should really make that actual comparison in a video. I don't think that has been done yet, but it should be done, because it's so interesting to me. Someone out there, please make the comparison video. It's so interesting to see how they did a Rider-Waite-Smith clone-ish, and then, you know, change the elements like that. So the more I looked at the Thompson-Lang cards, the more I got the feeling that they kind of did leave it up to interpretation, because, for instance, the Queen of Cups, she is still sitting near water. But then what they did in the Thompson-Lang, they added this little butterfly right here and then this big cloud behind her head. I remember that distinctly. So you see there's still the element of water, obviously, because she is sitting still near water. She's on the shore. But then it is the element of air because of that air symbol of the butterfly, which most of us, right, are used to seeing with the swords. It's all in the throne or in the this crown of the Queen of Swords or the King of Swords. Then again, I kind of think that there's also the option that the Thomson-Leng artist put the Queen of Cups near water just because the queens have the element of water. Just another possibility. There are quite a few theories out there as to why the cups all of a sudden are not water, but here are my initial thoughts. A cup is a receptacle. It's open. So empty, as they do appear in the Rider-Waite-Smith and in so many other decks actually, they would hold air. And just look at the suit of swords in the Rider-Waite-Smith. The entire suit of swords, there is so much water in every card. In every card of the swords. You could easily, now I actually think that this card was changed in the Thompson-Lang, that's very possible, but still, you wouldn't have to change anything about this card and still, make the association of, okay, swords are water because there's so much water right there. And going back to this, Four of Cups, honestly, this cup is floating in the air and it comes with a little cloud. I mean, there's no water around. It's air. So, you could even say that the Six of Cups with the flowers could be earth, but let's not screw up everything we've ever learned. You see what I mean? Just look at this swords with water. I know that they did change this very card, which is actually a shame in my opinion because so much water, but it is still with that crossing the river symbolism. I don't see water in these cups, do you? Let's look at some swords. I mean, we don't know. That in the back, is that water? I don't know. So much water right there. And this could actually, the Eight of Swords could actually also be one of those places that floods every now and then. I know some of you are screaming, don't mess with the elements. I will. I am messing with the elements. Well, actually, I'm not. I'm just providing the information. And, yeah, it's just, again, very interesting to me. I'm not going to change the way that I read the elements, but... Okay, so some of the theories that I've heard. Swords are bad, therefore many tears will come from them, so that equals water. Possible. I also can't help but think of the Lady of the Lake with Excalibur. She does come from the water, right? Actually, I'm a little rusty on that story, but you wouldn't know swords was air. There's so much water. Emphasis is made on the water. This is the Druidcraft, by the way. But, yeah. Two Aces of Swords. Lady of the Lake. Symbolism. Could be water. But I kind of also feel that that may just be a coincidence. Then there's another one. Swords draw blood. And blood is a liquid. You know, swords draw blood in a fight. To me, it makes the element of air, making it correspond to cups. It just makes it a little bit lighter. Kind of as how I used to see the element of air before I got into tarot. Because to me, air was all about that not grounded energy at all, very much head in the clouds, dreamy kind of thing. So unfocused, but very much, the emphasis on imagination and daydreaming. That can easily be linked to something romantic and positive and that whole head in the clouds kind of energy. So I do kind of feel when you think about it, even though, of course, out of all these elements, cups would be water, obviously, but then again, not every time, apparently. So I'm trying to make sense of this, and in that sense, I do feel it a little bit. That's at least how I would interpret it, because I don't know how that cups is air would be read, or if the Thompson-Lang tarot even is read differently than a regular Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, I know from Kasia's video from Tarot Map that the little white book has some really strange meanings, like the Five of Cups, for instance, being something really happy. And swords are still challenging, but for slightly different reasons. I'm one of those tarot readers and people who constantly says there is this unbreakable connection between head and heart, so between air and water, or almost unbreakable, but so for that reason, maybe a deck like the Thompson-Lang, or any of those Picard systems really, wouldn't really change the way that I read the tarot at all? I don't know. Because obviously I wouldn't just simply put the Five of Cups meaning with the Five of Swords. There would have to be this understanding as to why they are cups, why they are swords. Somewhere I think it would change the understanding of the cards in particular, but the way that I read wouldn't change all that much, probably. Anyway, I would love to hear what you think. Do you own any of these decks that I talked about? Do you own a deck that changes the suits and the elements and all that stuff, and how do you read with it? I would really love to hear back, because this is really just me talking about this and sharing my thoughts on how I think I would interpret this in this way, but it is very, well, maybe not confusing, just surprising, as I said, and interesting. I really would love for you to share your thoughts and share your experience if you have any. So yeah, just share that and we can learn from each other. I think that's all really interesting. Thank you again, Kasia. As I said, her video is linked below, and much love to everyone. Enjoy the week.